Hey, what's going on, gentlemen?
What's up,
What's
Senior?
up?
What's up? I feel like it's been a minute since we've all done one of these. Life happens, and glad to get back on the call with you guys.
Yeah, man, same here. I always hate the times that we don't link up because I think these talks are kind of like a boost for me. They charge me up and get me prepared for the next week or few days and give me some good talking points when I'm speaking to other people. So happy to
Yeah,
be back on it.
yeah, absolutely. And I know we've all had some transitions and stuff in life where things got busy. So glad to get on. That kind of brings us to our topic today, where we wanted to talk about what how you spend your time, or just talk about opportunity cost of your time. I think the first bullet we wanted to talk about was your time, how you get paid, how you value your time versus how much money you make. Like what's the importance of each one, and we can touch on that. Depending. I think that for me, I'll start it. I think it just depends on stage of life that you're in. I know when I was younger, it was definitely I'm not old, but I say that like I'm an old man. But I when I was younger, it was definitely the hustle go after mindset. So anytime there is an opportunity for me to make money, I was there to make money. As opposed to now, things are a little bit different, a little bit older, have a family. So I can't always like drop what I'm doing to be like, oh, go make the money. Because I think as I get older, the more of just me getting my time back is more of an important thing the older I get. Um, that's just not to go too deep. We can dive into it deep later, but that's like my high level view of it.
Interesting. So I almost have I guess I'll go on that a second, but I'm curious too. How much do you feel like it's correlated with age versus experience? So do you feel like if you, let's say you had experience that wasn't really leveling you up, you weren't growing in your youth, and now you're starting to gain some experience and value, do you think that would shift your perspective today?
Yeah, I think I definitely think experience plays a part. Big, and I would probably say the main thing with me with experience would be learning to be more efficient with what I output too, because that gives me time back. I know younger me, I procrastinated a lot. I'm not perfect these days, but I'm more conscious of like using the time I have available, because I know once the kid gets home from daycare, like it's on and popping. Like I'm not gonna be able to go back to the computer unless it's like late at night after their sleep. So I know, like, as opposed to before that, it would be like, oh, I can push this off later. Got the afternoon to work on it, work through dinner time or whatever, work through weekends. Time wasn't like as like priorities. Now I know, like, man, I get up, I got this certain window to get work done. I ain't gonna get none done on the weekends unless it's really late. So it's like, do I want to trade that time off or do I want to sleep? So I definitely think experience plays a part, but also just learning to prioritize my time better as I've grown and life has changed.
That's awesome.
Yeah, now that's interesting. I think sometimes I think about that trade off between time and money, and I ask myself, um, is the reason why my mindset has shifted while I'm still at a relatively young age, partially because, and I think I speak for all of us on this call, is we've been blessed to cram a lot of, some would call it like career growth in a very short
Mhm.
amount of time, right? So like I even think about Lewis, what you've done, and Joe, what you've done, and even me to some degree, and you think about certain pinnacles that people say they want to reach by certain ages,
Yeah.
and like we've been really blessed in that we've hit some of these like pinnacles um, at a much younger age than a lot of people hit, and
Yeah.
I wonder if that has helped shift the way I think about that relationship. Because if you think like, man, I've got to grind 20 years to get to this level, but once I get there, then I'll be happy and I'll feel fulfilled, and then I'll have a lot more time and resources to do the things that I really value and I want to do.
Yeah.
Then that might prolong that shift in mindset versus being like, in a 5-year span or a 10-year span, you hit certain thresholds that, you know, some of us hold at such a high regard, and then you realize your life isn't just inherently better because you reached the title or the status or the income or whatever
Yeah.
these career goals are. Then that makes you start to really reevaluate, like, what should I be doing with as much of my time as possible to reach happiness, because they're not directly correlated. And I think that it's a huge benefit that we've been able to see it, faster. But is the reason why we've been able to see it faster because we've been willing to sacrifice way more of our time on the front end when other people wouldn't. So then that's still the trade-off of what were we prioritizing, the time versus the money at that level.
Yeah, I agree. I think putting that time in ahead of time, but if you think about it though, kind of we touched on this dream before we started the call too, is like getting around people or just by us having these conversations. I would think it's fair to say that definitely we all put in hard work, but we've all made a huge growth or tremendous amount of growth these last 5 years. While we've been having more in-depth conversations about our financial future, our investing, more money, because more income you make, the more decisions and ways you get to thinking about, okay, how can I use this money to make more from me? How can I use this money to get back more time? As opposed to I would probably say even before these conversations, I'm not saying even if we were in a situation where we were making as high as income as we make now, we probably wouldn't have been, it probably still would have been a grind, but it probably would have could have easily been up in a situation where like we weren't thinking about how to make this money work for us, you know? It could have just been a situation, I make it, I spend it. I go spend money here, make money here. Like it's I think it's a different conversation. So um I'm glad we touched on that just a little bit because I think part of it too is just making these conversations like we have, just making it common and making it um more okay for people to have them. And I think we're seeing that a lot because I think it applies or one shows us what's out there. I think the main thing, and it just uses as a motivator. Who you hang around and who you spend your time around and share knowledge with has an effect and rubs off on you um, in a positive way.
Or negative.
It could go in a negative way too. I definitely seen it both ways.
Yeah, yeah, man, I completely agree. Um, I don't know, when I think about that trade off though. I guess I wonder, at what point do you start to shift your thinking, and to make money you have to spend time in the first place? Like, when did that trade off start to happen? Like, when did you start to change the way you even thought about those two things?
I think with me is like um originally like I think I had certain income goals and milestones that I wanted to hit. And I think after a while, you can go, push. But after a while, it, it doesn't matter how much income you're making. If you're not able to enjoy your time or just have the freedom to do things, it 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 starts to wear on you. I know for me. Um, I mean, we're not all no, we're made to push each other and go, but we're not all made to be sitting in front of a computer or a desk all day, you know? Like if you feel like you get to a place where like, hey, I'm making an income, but my lifestyle has increased to this. So I'm pretty much just working. You can be a high income earner and still be paycheck to paycheck. And you can realize like, hey, I'm making a great income, but I have this crazy lifestyle that I'm trying to support. So I can't leave it. I can't get time back. So I think I've seen people in that situation. I think for me, like I wanted I want to set myself up to where I don't feel like I'm stuck at a place or have to stuck doing a job um just to trade off money, trade money for it. Like You like to be able to go enjoy things. You like to have back some of that freedom. I think that's what we all want at the end of the day, because I think you all see, even as an employer, you could be here today and you could see somebody, we've seen people leave on teams or that we've worked with here one day and then they're just gone the next day. So um, I think you realize more of that, like, even though you work for a business, you treat your career like a business too. Um, I think that started part of the shift too, because I think we touched on this earlier too in previous subjects. Like, the more you work, doesn't, or the harder you work doesn't always equate to um, higher pay, more recognition. You're just working hard. So I think those things kind of summed into how your time and your effort kind of weighs in. Those are kind of the things that got me thinking. I know it's a roundabout way, but several things that got me thinking about the importance of time versus making money.
That's awesome. I think when you were talking about paycheck to paycheck, that struck me close to my heart, because I feel like I live paycheck to paycheck way longer than I should have. Higher numbers than his probably makes any kind of sense.
Yeah.
But and then also it's interesting though how even like this progression and this stuff over time, like technically my title at every job has gone backwards every single time.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting how it's not always the external factors that are actual signals for growth.
Your title's going backwards, but your income's going up, right?
Right.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been paid yet. So they said they've had payroll issues for the last couple of years. So
Oh, awesome.
once they work it out, I'll see.
That passive income must be doing great then. No paychecks.
But the kind of thinking about the two catalysts that stand out for me, probably the first one was seeing dad get laid off. So it was just, I was working, I was early in my career, and just seeing that, and then seeing how it impacted everyone around him, and nobody wanted to take responsibility. It was just a process of the system. And it was just like, oh, I can't treat this so personal as I have before, where it's like, everybody there was my friend, but the business is a business and it's got to be that sort of relationship. And so from there, like, honestly, I still feel bad when I leave places and I'm like turning in my notice or whatever. It's weird. A part of me just feels bad. I don't know why, but I'll still do it because it's like, I've got to do what's best for me and my growth moving forward. And then another one was, it was actually Nikita. She pointed out, she was like, why are you working so hard? Because I think it was maybe 2 jobs ago, I would just work for no reason. It was like me and 2 of my friends, we would just work. We would be like, all right, let's work overnight for no rhyme or reason. We would just work. And she was like, what are you really doing? And when I really looked at it, I may have been working hard, but it was cruft. Like, I kind of just said, let me just actually focus on getting stuff done for like 4 hours, 5 hours instead of 12, 13. And I was actually getting more done. So came to realize, I'm like just really just spinning my wheels, hammering, doing all this stuff, really hanging out with friends and really getting no meaningful growth or output from that effort. So it was kind of those 2 things really were big shifts. And I think it was, I guess, listening to books and seeing just how some people consistently in a lot of different sources start to value their time and start to value their kind of detachment from the need to do things. And so it was like, oh, because personally right now, I'm not there. I enjoy my job. I enjoy, writing code. Like I love to do it. But I understand based on the fact that a lot of people get to the point where they don't enjoy it anymore. And that they value these other things, that I need to set things up today before I'm at that point and feel that pull and urge to have some sort of backup secondary source of income. I don't know. Those are probably 3 things that just really help me to kind of shift from working hard and trading my time to really putting a lot of weight into, I guess, some more passive income.
Mm-hmm.
I like I from what both of you said, it kind of has a central theme, and it's been a theme for me also of like understanding what you want and what you enjoy and what makes you happy and what
Mm-hmm.
your, for lack of a better term, end goal is. I think is a huge catalyst for knowing when and where and how much of that trade-off should happen. Because Joe, to your point, you were talking about like being a little bit younger and just working nonstop. Well, even now, you still love coding and you enjoy it. And so for you, that's a part of your actual like happiness in life is working on something that's pleasurable for you. Versus I'm sure that there are some programmers who don't really like the program, but they want the paycheck that's associated with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for them, their end goal is different, and what they're doing, what they're spending their time on, isn't going to be a value add if that's not what they want to be doing all day. So I think, like, for all of us, the real key is to understand like what makes you tick, and a lot of that comes with like self-discovery and reading the
Mm-hmm.
books and doing the work to like really get to know yourself, because the more self-aware you are, the more you are willing to say, hey, yeah, I'm spending a bunch of time on that, but hey, I really love that, so I would have done it for free anyway, so that's not a waste of time. That's actually a multiplier in my life because I like working on those things. And if you're not at that point, or if your current environment doesn't give you that feeling, then it really is like up to you to decide what would I rather be doing with my time, or what would I rather be doing with my energy? Because then you can either A, decide in the short term, I need to focus even more time or energy and effort into improving my current situation so that in a much faster amount of time I can be out of this environment and
Mm-hmm.
on do what I actually really like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or B, I need to stop doing this now and spend my time doing something different. And that might not even be work. That might be taking less hours and doing less work, because what you really value is free time with family and long walks on the beach in the forest or
Yep.
whatever it is. Like, I've kind of come to terms with the fact that making a lot of money to then have a lot of resources and a lot of free time as one path, which is great. But for someone else, the path might be a barista at Starbucks and live way, way below most people's means,
Mm-hmm.
because really value doesn't cost anything.
Yep.
But until you know that about yourself, then you don't know how to make that trade-off.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Joe touched on a point too, indirectly. He didn't say it, but like you have his wife telling him, "Hey, why are you spending all this time on this?" Is saying that, "Hey, you got other responsibilities too that you need to spend time on too," and just weighing that like you could be working, but like some of these memories and things you can't get back, with your spending time with our kids, like they're growing and it's a very critical stage in their life for us to be there. So like you want to be at events and show up for them in their life. Like they're not gonna remember, you know, dad's that pulled an all-nighter coding. Like they don't care, It's like, come hang out with me. Those are the things they're gonna remember. So I think being able to factor that into it as well. Obviously, you want to provide and take care of your family, but you also want to be there to spend time with them too.
I'm curious if we should call out, because we talk about time and spending time. What do you think about like the ratio? Because you can think of a certain bucket of your time, and let's talk about the working time.
Mhm.
Some of it is just busy work. Like
Yep.
you're doing the same thing over and over. You're really getting nothing out of it. It's just a task that has to be done,
Mhm.
versus time that's carved out for things that are going to help push you forward.
Yep.
So whether that's, during your career or time carved outside of that, I think you're using the barista example. Let's say you also want to become a DJ.
Mhm.
So, you're you have to practice that craft outside of Starbucks. What do y'all think about that, and kind of how that shifts during your journey?
I think you know, as far as like determining where to spend that time or if to spend time on that, Joe.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
and I guess it would shift, because I don't know.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I think that's important. I mean, I think definitely think it's important to spend time on areas of interest you have outside of work, or even, you know, area of interest that you have outside of your normal career. I think it's important. Like, I think the main thing is too, I think coming with that, we talked about a little bit earlier, is being able to, if you want to do those things, is being able to manage your time or set dedicated time for that. Um, Otherwise, I mean, it could be, if you're not, you know, purposeful and setting time for that, could be a situation where you can keep saying, "Oh, I want to be a DJ." 5 years later, you ain't done one show because you're not spending time working on being a better DJ. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And to touch on that a little bit deeper, I think it all goes back to planning. And it's funny that I keep talking about like planning, and maybe there's some stuff that I'm like trying to work through because I'm actually not that great at it. Like I've been well known to procrastinate, and I've been well known to like kind of just like shoot from the hip and like figure it out along the way. And I'm not saying that like you can't be relatively successful at doing those things, but even when you think about like dividing your time into what you're doing now versus what you want to do, I think a lot of people, me included, even struggle with knowing like what does it take to do what I want to do. And I
Mhm.
think that's a huge factor in like how much time should I be even dedicating to it, right? Like a lot of people have these goals, and we don't know what it takes to do that. So like let's say you want to start a new profession, or you want to learn a new trade or a new craft, like do you spend the energy thinking through what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, talking to people who have done that thing before, doing some research and saying like how many hours a day would it take me to be efficient at this thing? And you may not know. So like that doesn't mean you don't start. Sure, maybe I only have 30 minutes, so I allocate 30 minutes. But if it's like I want to get into this new field, or I want to do this new thing, well, what time commitment is reasonable to get to a certain level of competency in an amount of time that you want to get there by? Or like you want to write a book. Okay, cool. So if you only spend 15 minutes a day, realistically, how long is it going to take you to write that book? If you want a book written in 3 months, you might need a little bit longer than 15
Mhm.
minutes, right? And so being able to like better understand what's required and knowing what you want so that you can kind of go through what those requirements look like, I think it's huge. And so many of us waste time, for lack of a better word, because we really are going through life without a real plan.
Yeah. And I think to your point too, and it falls along the lines of what we're doing here with HouseQue, is I would say the way to shortcut that is to go out and find people who have done it, whether that's via paying for a course, whether that's paying for their time, um, to help shortcut that process. Because most likely, I mean, most of the ideas that are out there, most of the things that are done today that people have interest in, someone's done it. So why not make that investment? Um, you know, you're investing your time anyway, so why not make that investment money wise too, to help shortcut that? Because that probably could save you a lot. They know probably could, if you get the right person, it will save you a lot of time on the back end, um, of just spending time doing it. And I think a lot of times, like where people go and we waste a lot of time, is because I know for me, and I had to get over this. Like my personality is like, oh, I can figure it out on my own. Like I want to figure it out. Yeah, I know they've done it, but I want to figure it out. But and if I go and get help and get resources, I save myself a lot of time, like by doing that. So I think that's a way to help shortcut it, because the answer may be there. You know?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean I completely agree. I think I read somewhere that like the best real estate investors are people that aren't handy. Because if you know how to fix a leaky toilet, then you're gonna want to just go do it yourself. If you know how to, put up drywall or whatever, versus somebody who's like, the numbers work, the process works, the idea makes sense. I don't want to build a house. I don't want to run a building. I just want the time that passive income can save me,
Yep.
or the resources it can give me. But my time is more valuable doing something different. And so,
Yeah.
like, that's a big part of it, is what you like to do, what you know how to do, what you're proficient at, should be where you focus your energy from, like, a work perspective, if at all possible,
Yeah.
knowing what your real values are outside of working hours, and being able to, like, prioritize increasing those hours if you choose to, is like the goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I that it's funny you bring it up because I go through it with Melissa's dad all the time with his properties. With He's very handy. He likes to fit stuff. He likes to build stuff, and I'm like, man, you got guys that can do it for you. It always comes back to this discussion. He's like, oh yeah, I finally hired my guys to do it, and they got it done. They did a really good job. I'm like, I told you to do that from the beginning. You've wasted how long when you could have just hired them to do it? They're better at it, and they're much more efficient. He's like, yeah, you're right. But it's easy. If you know, it's easier to do it. Now, in some cases, like it makes sense. This is a smaller case, like even the place that we're renting, like the smoke detector had a low battery and it kept going off and off and off. And Melissa was like, why don't you just contact the property manager and have them change the battery out? And I was like, you know what? I got a step stool and I got a ladder. It takes me 2 minutes to do it. By the time I go tell them what I need done, I could have just changed the battery out. So instances like that, it makes sense. But in the grand scheme of thing, sometimes it's a lot easier just to contract it out to get the work done much faster.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah. Most of the time. Less stressful too.
yeah, I don't know. Joe, do you have any thoughts on the whole spending time doing things that, like, get you a paycheck right now or over the next 2 weeks, versus spending time and energy for some type of passive income in the future? And, like, how do people shift their focus to things like that? Because I think that, like, everybody talks about passive income, but, like, how do you actually approach getting passive income?
I feel like it's probably the best like analogy would be momentum. And the thing that's going to generate the most initial inertia to get the momentum going is the immediate transactional thing. So if you have no passive income, you have no momentum. So you need a lot of inertia up front, or something, energy, to get that ball rolling. And so that's kind of what it is early on it's going to be almost 100% transactional, where you're trading your time. You've got to build up enough to get that ball rolling. And once you get it rolling, you kind of have to reevaluate that balance. So, at this point, you might be making $5 a month. That's great, but that ball is barely moving. So you still need those transactions to boost that up. Once you're making, let's say, 5,000 a month, depending on where you are, you might be good. You might say, hey, you know what? I can live on a farm. I can do this. And transactions to you could just start to be, you'd price it as such, where you're like, hey, I really don't want to do this. So it's going to cost $1,000 an hour. And it may not make sense on the outside, but that's just where you value your time. And early on, you have to place value in how much that's going to allow you to push forward and getting that momentum going. So I think that's kind of the heuristics I use in my head to kind of gauge how much my time might be worth. However, I will also consider certain things, like if, just speaking personally, like if a young engineer reaches out to me, for time, I value my time high, but I also value their potential and the opportunity for them and the impact I might be able to have for them. And so with that, I almost lower my own value my time, and maybe I need to reevaluate that. But at this time, it's so infrequent that I'll try to do whatever I can to help someone out early on.
Yeah. No, I like that because it most cases probably will save you time in the long run to take that time to show them how to do it and do it right and answer their questions. Otherwise, probably come back to you somehow anyway. So might as well get it out the way. I
Yeah.
it's so funny to touch on that, and then I'll wrap it up. I know we have to head out here in a bit. Um, for some reason about passive income, I don't know why I just get a greater feeling, or I don't know why it just feels better for, I could go do a job and get paid like 5,000 and like, cool, I spent like this many hours on it. Cool, I got paid. But then I can get like some passive income of like $100. And for some reason, I always smile when I get that ding for that $100 for somebody I did months ago. It's like, oh, you got paid this affiliate or this thing from. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I don't know why. Like it always gets a greater sense or a better feeling from that. It's just weird. I can't explain it.
Man, I feel the same way, and it's interesting. So like Joe, even the comment you made about like this the time that you spend with the young engineer, right? And like that might be in your company. I assume there are times when it's somebody that you don't work with, you probably never will work with. But I think even that goes into that understanding of like what brings value, because money and value are so different. So like the value of your time could be heavily weighted on how many people did I help today. And so that is a direct like trade-off of I value helping people. So the hours I spend with these young engineers is a well better use of my time than the money that I value less than impact. Right. And so but you have to know that about yourself to know like I'm spending my time in the right way. Because if you were like hardcore capitalist, then that might not be the best use of your time. If if you do value relationships and building people up and like genuinely helping, then that's a much better use of your time than the $1,000 an hour that maybe you could have made doing something else, right? So even from that perspective, like we have to be really clear on like what makes us tick. But yeah, I completely agree with the whole getting excited about a small amount of passive income versus a larger amount of active income. And I think for me, it still goes back to on some level, I understand that by me making passive income, even if it's on a small scale,
Yep.
that's like I can equate that to an earned hour.
Hmm.
And time is so much more valuable than money that like I think less highly of money I make for time spent versus money I make for time that I didn't spend. At
Yep.
least it's been a long time since I spent that time, and it's like continuing to provide dividends. So I think the biggest thing is like if we all looked at our lives and our currency as time as opposed to money, then we would all act so differently
Yep.
towards towards personal life, towards everything.
Hmm.
But it's a hard shift to make when if you don't have much of either. It is a
Absolutely.
hard trade-off to like try to grapple with.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good point to wrap us up on, and I definitely appreciate these calls, guys, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. Um, Even this, I know we're not getting paid for this, but we enjoy doing it and we enjoy providing value. Yeah, Joe, why you look so surprised? Yeah, check's not coming. Not coming. I think we just lost Joe for the rest of these calls. No, I'm kidding.
This will be in 10 years.
All right, fellas. Thank you guys. Peace.
Take care.